Once upon a time, there was a little boy called Howard who loved writing stories.
Little Howard dreamed of being a writer, and so he sat and wrote every night. But everything he wrote was fucking shite, yeah. Wubba-dubba-doo, wubba-dubba-doo. Worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world, worst writer in the world. He's a stupid, suck-ass, rubbish writer.
Welcome to the worst writer in the world with me, Rufus, and he's got feathers, he's laying eggs, and everyone wants to know why he crossed that road.
How long?
Yeah. Thank you to the British Comedy Guide for hosting this show. Thanks to all of our lovely patrons on Patreon for giving us money for this show. And thanks to you for listening to this show. This week, it's another Howard short, and one I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah.
So shall we get started, Howard?
Yes, please.
Well, Howard, here we are again, sitting in our chairs, ready to record something written by young Howard. And today, it appears to be something entirely new that you just found from some magical black hole of schoolwork that's in your room that occasionally just spits things out at you that you did back in the 90s that you've never told me about before. What, can you give me the basics? What is this? You sent me some photos of it, basically.
Yes, it's a very short story.
You're a very short story.
Thank you very much. No, actually, no, I'm a long story.
No, hang on. Once upon a time, there was a dead good man called Howard. The end. There you go, short story.
It's good. It's not entirely satisfying, is it?
All right. Once upon a time, there was a dead good man, but someone said he wasn't dead good, but they turned out to be wrong. The end. See, the moment of crisis in the middle there.
Yeah. And then he got
low point.
And he gets a prize. Give him a prize at the end.
All right. Once upon a time, there was a dead good man called Howard, but everyone said he was rubbish. Hang on. I've made the low point lower. Everyone said he was a right rubbish, but they were wrong. And so he shot them all with his golden gun that he got given for being so good.
And brilliant. And then he had a cake. Yeah, I like it.
All right, so once upon a time there was a cake called Howard, who was rubbish. And hang on, I've got confused. So someone shot him with a gun, and then he was better. Is that the sort of thing you're hoping for?
I don't know. Things are quite confusing these days, aren't they? Because even when people say things that they put across as meaning, sometimes they're being sarcastic and lying. So if someone says to me that I'm really good and I get a gold gun for being really good, I don't know whether that's someone taking the piss or whether I'm getting one.
All right, I'll tell you what. When I say you're dead good, I am serious about that. But I've got a little confession for you. When I say you're getting a gold gun, that bit's not real.
Oh no.
So I'm looking in the Dropbox. I see a new folder called Sumerian Child.
Well, here's the thing. We've not seen this before because it wasn't an English project.
Is this religious studies again?
No.
Oh, yikes. What's this? Is it history?
History with Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah. He was.
I assume I had him as a... No, not at all.
He was a hippie. He had long hair and a beard, and he always wore a knitted jumper, which his wife, Mrs. Miller, the art teacher, had made. And
she worked at the same school.
Yeah,
really?
She was the art teacher. He was the history teacher. Some people say they shouldn't really get on, really, should they? But art history is a thing, I suppose.
Yeah, what about art history? Who do you think gave birth to art history, if not the art teacher and the history teacher? If they're not doing it, then we don't have art history. Okay, so... There's no subject called chemistry English, is there?
That's true.
That's because those two hate each other.
All right, so Mr. Miller met Mrs. Miller. She wasn't Mrs. Miller then, of course, unless it was incest. We don't want to think about that.
No, it doesn't have to be incest for two people to have the same name. Miller's quite a common name.
Does it not have to be? It's kind of, though, isn't it? If I met someone else called Howard and slept with them, that would be kind of incestuous. Because the only reason I'd be doing them was because they were called Howard.
I want to say no, but also at the same time, I kind of feel like anyone you sleep with is kind of incestuous for some reason.
I agree.
And therefore you shouldn't ever sleep
Because
with
I insist on calling them all Howard. Yes,
because you
right.
insist on calling them all Howard.
Yeah.
I insist on it, Your Honour, and therefore I should go to jail.
Oh, he insisted on it, and so what could I do? This is disgusting.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's stop this immediately.
You shouldn't, to be honest, when it comes to sex, you shouldn't use words like insist or incest, to be honest. Those are both bad things to do when in your sex life.
So Mrs. Miller married Mr. Miller, and she knitted him a jumper, which was Stonehenge. Now, do you remember a big bearded man? He was really tall, he had dark hair, dark beard, and he always wore a red jumper with Stonehenge on it. Okay.
You're describing Santa Claus wearing a Stonehenge
So
jumper.
you probably had a different history teacher.
But were there two history teachers?
Yes, but who was your geography teacher?
I don't know.
Do you remember Mrs. Onions? Because if you don't, you had a different geography teacher as well.
The trouble is, I remember you talking about Mrs. Onions loads for the last 20 years, right? So I don't know if I actually remember Mrs. Like, I don't know if I really remember Friendly Pencuffs, or if it's just I remember you talking about it loads.
That's fair enough. I mean, like, when
A
I
lot of my
say
memories may be just you talking.
normally when I say Mrs. Onions out loud, I don't really think anything of it, but with the added pressure of a microphone, I'm starting to doubt her existence myself.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
If your name, right? If your name was Mrs. Onions, would you consider for a second getting a job in a middle school, or would you be like, no fucking way? Or if you did make that mistake,
give him
after a
fake
week
name,
you'd
right?
quit, right?
You
You'd
could just
like,
give
or
it-
you'd say.
Yeah, just say Mrs. Smith.
Just say, oh, listen, Mr. Miller, can I pretend I'm your wife?
Yeah,
And say,
your
my name's
other-
Mrs. Miller,
other
please.
wife.
He's like, no, the art teacher, Mrs. Bumface, is already doing that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mrs. Onions, you're going to have to stick with it. She's got it worse.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Miller, the history teacher, gave you this assignment, project, essay, what is it?
So, I guess at the time, we were studying different parts of history, and at some point we decided to just, well, not we decided, yeah, me and my
Mr.
friend
Miller.
Mr. Miller.
What should we do this week, Mr. Miller? I was thinking we should do Sumerian.
Sumerians? Should we do Sumerian?
Yeah, sure, why not?
So we obviously learned about Sumeria and the Sumerians that live in Samaria, and then, as you saw within religious studies, occasionally you get a chance to be a little bit creative. And so he said, well, now we all know everything there is to know about Sumerians and being a Sumerian. Why don't you imagine that you were a Sumerian and write how your day was in Samaria?
So it is still kind of creative writing, even though it's not for English. So many subjects just went, write a story. Religious studies, write a story about someone who's a spy for a god or something. History, all right, write a story about imagining you're a Sumerian. Chemistry, imagine you are hydrogen.
Yeah, no, it never happened in science or maths.
Imagine you are the number 6. Write about your day. Woke up, had breakfast, felt scared because heard that 789.
Yeah. Bed.
Went bed.
My bad. Yeah, that's what number 6 did. He's not a number, though, is he? He's a free man.
He is a free man, yeah. That woke up, was not a number, was a free man. Bed.
Yeah.
Number 6 does it.
Yeah.
Demanded to see number 1, was refused. Bed.
That's true, actually, because if you think about
Danced in a truck.
if you
got
think about
confused,
if you
bed.
think about the TV series The Prisoner,
Became a cowboy for this week for some reason. Bed.
doesn't do much other than get out of bed and go
Get
back
up,
to it, does
yeah.
he? So-
Get up, demand to see number 1, bed. Got attacked by a balloon. Bed. A day in the life of a Sumerian child.
Nice.
All right, now I want to make a joke about like woke up, watched 18, went bed, but that is how it starts. It says today I woke up early.
I mean, I suppose it would be foolish of us to imagine that I could possibly come up with anything good when the best I could do for my own life, which I actually lived through, was that. And I wasn't in Samaria in the past, so...
Actually, yeah, we do know
How
that
can
if you
I?
haven't experienced something, you've got no way of writing about it.
Yeah.
I have never been blind, deaf, or Indian, and therefore I will write about dying in the Arctic instead.
Yes, I've never been...
Which I am very familiar with.
But on this occasion, I've never been blind or deaf, so I'm going to write about being a Sumerian child.
Yeah. That is you do know as much about being a Sumerian child as dying in the Arctic, so that is the same.
Hey, I just went for the harder things, didn't I? I just went for the harder topics.
It's easy writing about being blind and deaf. That's a breeze.
What's it like? Close your eyes, just, write some shit. Put your fingers in your ears, that's what it
Write
is.
some shit with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, easy. I think pretty much everything I write I do with my eyes closed. Yeah, no, but the thing is, your fiction, as we know from reading your diary, that your fiction is much better than your reportage, than your true stories, which I woke up, went bed. But your fiction's brilliant. So the fact that you are not writing something you know about is a good sign. 'Cause if it was like, write about something that happened to you 2 weeks ago in history, then it'd be like, oh God, woke up, went bed. But this is going to be good. All right. Today, I woke up early as I wanted to watch the A-Team on television and go to the Haymarketeers.
Brilliant.
No, it doesn't say that. It says, today I woke up early as I wanted to be at Edubas early.
Yes.
Sorry for my pronunciation. I know absolutely nothing about Sumer and the Sumerians.
Didn't you say this was a dead society, so we can't offend anyone?
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just I'm not expecting to offend people, but people might be like, "Oh, that's not how you pronounce it. You pronounce it Adubas."
I mean, how would they know? I mean, it's not like you can ask anyone, is it? It sounds like I made it up because I'm pretty sure that thing in religious studies sounded a bit like that, right? Abu Abbas or something, right?
Yeah.
Am I not just making
Abu
up
Abbas?
something
I
that
can't
Sumerian people... Yeah, I woke up early and went to Abu Abbas, like we Sumerians do.
Wow, that would be really.
Hung my box in the tree this morning.
Oh, I set fire to a box in a tree with my dad in.
I got up really high. A girl tried afterwards and she didn't. She was rubbish. I couldn't climb the tree.
I think that is very sexist. And I'm glad they died out over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That's my favourite thing about that.
Ancient
tribe
tribe
that died out over 50
Dakas,
years ago. Abu Dakas, that is, isn't it? Yeah. So good.
Vintage.
But I because that's the sort of kid you were, though, isn't it? Just absolutely, I've got to do some work. What's the easiest way to do it? But for me, also, because it's not like you were actually lazy. We see all these things that you wrote and must have spent ages on, but you were like pointedly lazy. Like there were some things you would take ages on, and other things that you couldn't bear to spend a second on. And I feel like that thing is research or actual learning is the one you're like, no, I don't want to do that. But writing a story about some people you just made up, like a lot of people would find that more difficult than just reading about a real society and then just regurgitating it. You're like, no, I'm going to make it up. I think most people would find that more difficult. Inventing a society, do you know what I mean? But for you, that was the lazy option, wasn't it? Oh God, I hate reading things and learning things.
I know. I can't read. It's really difficult for me. I get bored so quickly.
But I tell you what, I really hope, because that was pretty brave in religious studies, but if you went into a history class and went, I'm just going to invent the history that he is teaching me, that's some amazing child bravery right there.
Well, it's a creative writing exercise. Yeah. I mean, he didn't say Doctor Who couldn't be in it, did he? Right. It's a history story as well.
Today, I woke up early as I wanted to be at the Wise Place to meet Doctor Who.
Yeah.
All right, today I woke up early as I wanted to be at Adubas early. I packed my tablets, ate my food, and left.
That's probably like...
Writing tablets.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was
What were you going to say?
Yeah, that.
Paracetamol.
No. I was going to say that as well, but as a joke, because I was going to say they didn't have them in the past, did they? But of course they did. That's what they called bits of stone that they scribbled on, isn't it? Nowadays, that's what we mean by a Kindle.
Yeah, I packed my iPads, ate my, I don't know, what's modern food?
Cocoa Pops.
ate my Cocoa Pops. That's true, yeah. For some reason, I was thinking bananas, bread, rice. What's new food? What kind of food do you have? That's
brand names. It always go with brand names.
Yeah, that was both easy and clever of you. All right, so I packed my iPad, ate my Cocoa Pops, and left. Halfway there, I realised I had forgotten my lunch.
What? You just said you packed it.
No,
what
he
does
packed
that
his
mean?
tablets. Packed a tablet, ate his food, and left. But he ate his breakfast, but he didn't take his lunch with him.
Okay, I thought he packed it.
He ate his Cocoa Pops, but he didn't take his dairy
jam
Lunchables.
Sandwich.
So I realised I'd forgotten my lunch, so I ran back home down the hill. I arrived home and packed my lunch, then set off for school. That was a really good, bit of conflict there, wasn't it?
I mean,
I forgot my lunch, so I went and got it, and then had it, and then left again.
I mean, already. I've dropped in the Abu Dakas thing to make me sound like I know about Sumerian society, but all this business about having a packed lunch, right?
Yeah.
It's like going home and getting my Grizzly Adams lunchbox, right?
Yeah.
This is what's happening here.
It is.
I forgot my Grizzly Adams lunchbox. I ran home.
After my mum dropped me off at school in her car, I realised I hadn't got my packed lunch, so I had to ring her on my mobile phone. She came and got me.
Yeah.
Right, when I arrived, this is back at school, I was late, so I got whipped.
Yes.
It gets worse. It gets worse. So much worse. All right, fucking trigger warning, everybody. Seriously, if you're already a bit disturbed by this, skip forward 20 seconds or so. So when I arrived, might be longer than 20 seconds because I've got to actually be able to say it.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. Here I go. You were such a shit child. You were such a shit child. I feel so sorry for your teachers having to teach you. You were such an arse.
I skim read one paragraph of this, saw this bit, and was like, "This looks like prime material."
I've
got no interest or any kind of like emotional connection to any of my characters. I'm just interested in making
taking
a gag.
The piss. Yeah. When I arrived, I was late, so I got whipped. Brackets whip. Brackets whip, 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 whip. That's what it says. Close brackets 5 times. You awful child. Why could you never take anything seriously? You're talking about a child getting whipped.
Yeah, but I'm the child, so it's okay.
Oh, yeah. When I arrived, I was late, so I got whipped. Brackets, whip, 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 whip. Close brackets 5 times.
I guess the bit, when he taught us about Sumerian lifestyle, the thing I was most interested in was people getting whipped, maybe. It's like
Clearly.
putting that in my story. What do I like? Grizzly Adams' lunchbox? I'm whipping. Okay, let's get this done.
All right, so I got whipped 5 times. Then I found that I had forgotten my homework tablet.
Oh, no.
And got whipped, brackets, whip, 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 close brackets 5 times. Once wasn't enough for you. Yeah. A poor teacher reading this, going, what do I write at the end of this? I'm just going to write the word good. I'm going to take a lesson from Mr. Cotton and just write 19 out of 20 good. I tell you what, I think the next line we're really going to learn how much understanding of Sumerian society, how you're really trying to project yourself into a very, very different lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right. So you forgot your lunch, you forgot your homework. Right, already.
Yeah.
Really, really projecting. Really like stretching your imagination. Next up, at break time. Right, that's break. The Edu Bass bully picked on me.
Yeah, give us your dinner money, he said.
Give us your dinner tablet. I started fighting, but the whipper broke the fight up.
The whipper.
We were both whipped, brackets, whip, whip, whip 3 times.
The whipper.
The whipper.
Yeah, my understanding.
That's someone's job. I mean, there's so much whipping going on at this school. They need a dedicated whipper.
Now, Trevor, welcome to your first day as whipper at the Sumerian school.
I'm quite looking forward to whipping things that are definitely not children.
You can do that here. That is your
No,
job. You can
Things
whip whatever
that
you
are
like. You're the
not
whipper.
children. No, I'm looking forward to whipping
shit.
things that are not people, animals, or children. Particularly not children.
Can't be not whipping children, Trevor.
Hang on, that means I can be not whipping children. Okay.
Can't not whip them. Can't not whip. Gotta be whipping children, Trevor.
You're using too many knots here. So the whipper broke the fight up. We were
whipper.
both whipped, brackets, whip, whip, whip 3 times. After break, it was time for maths. And then we had computer science.
With Mrs. Onions.
Mrs. Sumerian,
Yeah.
in its historical context.
And Mr. Sumiller Onions. I don't know whether that makes any sense.
Because he's given his name to so many people, he's got confused and started using theirs as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Sumiller Onion's bum face. Anyway, so it was time for maths, but when I sat down, I shouted out because my bottom hurt.
Yes. Attention to detail, it would do, because he's been whipped.
Yeah, you're really imagining this life of a kid who goes to a school that's basically exactly the same as yours, plus whipping. This is Castle Rock plus whipping.
When I sat on my orange plastic chair,
Yeah, in Mr. Miller's
I
classroom.
was like, ow.
When I sat down for maths, I shouted out because also that handwriting's not great. So when I first read that, I thought it said after break it was time for maths. But when I sat down, I sharted out because my bottom hurt, and I was like, no, it's not sharted. Then I got whipped for disturbing the teacher. Brackets, whip, 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 whip 7 times.
Wow.
At dinner, I spilt my drink on the floor.
Oh, God.
And I got, yes, you've guessed
It
it.
doesn't say that, does it?
It does absolutely say that, yes. You guessed it. I got whipped, brackets, whip, whip, whip 3 times. You've decided that you've got a great joke for this story. You're like, I've got a brilliant child abuse joke for this story. It's going to be fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I've really got nothing, have I? I mean, this is Jack's turkey, because I was just thinking that even before you got to, yes, you guessed it, we had Boar's Head.
It's less than Jack's Turkeys, because it would be Jack's Turkeys if it was like the first 2 went into a butcher shop, brackets, butcher shop. Right? And then the next 2 went into a different butcher shop, brackets, butcher shop, butcher shop.
Yeah.
The 5th one got in a butcher shop, and the 6th one got in a car.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. It's that, but not butchers, it was with whip. The first turkey got whipped,
Yeah.
whip, and the second
Yeah.
turkey got whip.
So you
whip.
actually have less.
Third and the fourth
less
turkeys got
variety.
whipped. The 5th turkey got in a car. The 10th turkeys got whipped.
Whip, whip, car, whip.
Car. It's great that you can just say the word car and make you laugh now.
Yeah. It's true. Cars are hilarious. Who invented cars and murdered the planet?
Put turkey in one.
So I got whipped 3 times. Next at dinner. Next lesson was language. Mm-hmm. I spelt 23 words wrong.
Oh God! How many whips do you get for that?
So I got whipped 23 times.
I kind of knew that was coming.
Brackets.
Did I write it all?
Brackets. Whip. Whip. Etc.
Oh shit! I thought
Close brackets.
I thought I had like a word limit at this point, and I was like, I've got a really cunning idea how to fulfil my 250 word limit. Open brackets. Whip, whip, whip,
Yeah.
whip, 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 whip. Close brackets.
23 words. 23. Nailed it.
Well, I need another
Alright,
thing
was
for
it-
him to get whipped for. Then a dog came in. Whip, whip, whip.
Went his tail. The dog wagged his tail 150 times. Wag, 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 wag. Okay, finish, Mr. Miller. I've done it. 175 words.
Very realistic. Basically, I was taught this stuff, and I am just repeating it.
Maybe.
but I'm just not commenting on whether I think it's bad or not. Yeah. I'm just saying, went to school, forgot a thing, got whipped. Open brackets, whip. I don't have an opinion on it. I'm just like, this is what happened. Oh, I forgot my ham sandwich. Whip. So I'm not making this up. You taught me this. I'm just repeating it.
Yeah, maybe this is how Mr. Miller taught classes. Right? Maybe he was standing there, we're blaming you. Maybe he was like, well, of course, in ancient Sumer, in Mesopotamia, children got whipped all the time. For example, if one of them was late for school, he'd be whip. And if he got in a fight in the break time, they'd be whipped. And then, because he'd have a sore body, because his body would be sore, and when he went to maths class, he'd sit down, he might go, oh, my body's sore. And you know what would happen? Whipping, whip. All right. The last lesson was boring. My friend Abuda was whipped 17 times.
Shit.
I managed only 10. Brackets, whip, so on. So far, I have been whipped 56 times.
Open brackets. Whip. Just to recap those whips.
Yeah. To reiterate. Whip. No, it does say open brackets, but it's brackets 13 times less than yesterday. That was the end of the day, except that if you have been bad in the day, you get whipped double. Hang on, I've got to go to the next page. You get whipped double the amount, brackets, 112 times, 168 times altogether. So if you get in trouble during the day, like if you did one bad thing and it wasn't super, like if you spelt one word wrong and you get whipped once, then afterwards they'll be like, okay, you got whipped once, that was bad. We're going to do that double again. That's 2 more times. So you get whipped 3 times for every bad thing you do.
Oh my God. Maybe if it's considered the overall you were bad, then you get the double whipping. But maybe on top of the original whipping. But maybe if you got whipped like 5 times, you're not actually considered bad. You just
there's there's a threshold. Once you get over 50 whips, you've got to have it all again double. Because I mean, you're not quite dead yet, so we might as well keep whipping these children until they're fully dead.
So if you're wondering why the Sumer civilization no longer exists, it's because they whipped their children to death.
So double the amount, that's brackets 112 times, 168 times altogether. I had a great day today! ! The end.
Why did he have a great day?
I assume it's meant to be sarcasm, right?
Well, it's fine. It's nice that he can kind of like find some levity in the fact that he's just been whipped 156 times. And he can like, a lovely day today, he said.
He's probably lost his mind. The pain has driven him out of his brain.
What's more, if you've been bad during the day, they then whip you again twice as many times, but in your brain.
I had a great day today.
I'm very happy.
It was brilliant. My brain whipped 112 times.
For some reason, my head hurts, but I'm very happy.
And your teacher has written, what else happened?
Well, like I can reply.
Except other than the whipping.
Oh, right, yeah.
What else happened? Because you literally only mentioned whipping.
Whipping happened, sir.
More whipping.
More whipping.
Yeah, that's his comment. What else happened? Nothing about the whipping. I mean, I think this proves that he's the one who set the precedent of going whip, because he had no problem with that. He's just like, okay, I appreciate how much you focus on the whipping, because that was the main thing that happened to Sumerian children. Whip. Okay, but one thing I'd like to ask you, whip, is, could you maybe tell me anything else that happened, whip, particularly if it resulted in more whipping, whip. Right. Anyway, your grade for this writing was B+, whip.
Whip, B+.
You got a B+. Actually, you got B+ stroke B+. I don't know what that means. You got 2 B+ for that. That was amazing. That was extraordinary. I can't believe that you wrote a story about a Sumerian child and you decided to make it all about being whipped and nothing else, and basically just described some normal school things that you would have, like maths and lunch and break time and forgetting your homework, and just added whipping.
Yeah.
And your teacher's like, yeah, that's fine. Probably could have mentioned something else, maybe something to do with the country.
B+.
But with anything that we've learned other than the whipping. But, you decided to only include whipping, and therefore you get a B+.
I can just imagine myself going like, I've got a great idea.
I've got a brilliant, hilarious idea.
He gets whipped loads.
Yeah, Alf Crime's going to laugh loads at this.
He's going to get whipped. Everything he does gets him whipped.
Yeah, so much whipping. You wait. And also, I've got a second brilliant idea. It's not just that he gets whipped, right? After every time he gets whipped, I'm going to write brackets, whip, whip, whip. Fucking hilarious. And I'm going to do that like 9 times.
It's like when I think of a brilliant joke, like open brackets, whip, 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 close brackets, I'm not afraid to do it every paragraph.
Little Howard dreamed of being a writer, and so he sat and wrote every night. But everything he wrote was fucking shite, yeah. Wubba-dubba-doo, wubba-dubba-doo. Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world. Worst writer in the world.
Well, thank you for listening to this very special episode of The Worst Writer in the World, whip, whip, whip. And we'll be back. We'll be back next week, whip, 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 with another thrilling adventure by young Howard.
In the meantime, if you would like more of our stuff, then you better go and get some. Otherwise, you're going to get punished. That's right.
No.
If you don't join the Patreon, it's whip, 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 whip for you.
And that's a lot of whips. And don't forget, every whip you get, for like at the end of the day, they double it for some weird reason and do it all again twice as much until you're dead. So you better be careful, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to patreon.com/manbycow and discover that actually when you're there, you don't get whipped, but you get loads and loads of entertaining stuff by us instead. It's almost like, in fact, it's almost like joining the secret gang is the opposite of being whipped. Unless you like being whipped, in which case it's exactly the same. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye, milk.
Bye-bye, milk.
He's a stupid, suck-ass, rubbish writer. Yeah.